The Malaysian government stated that the ASEAN GCC and ASEAN GCC China summits mark pivotal points in Asian Gulf relations. This is especially true given the increasing importance of the economic and political partnership among the three regional blocs. Malaysia, currently chairing ASEAN, sees the upcoming summits as a strategic opportunity to reshape regional and international cooperation. This is particularly significant as the combined GDP of ASEAN, GCC countries and China approaches about 25 trillion US dollars and their combined population exceeds 2 billion. Joining us live from Kuala Lumpur via Zoom is Nailah Huda, news anchor and journalist at Astro Awani, focusing on international news, global affairs, politics and Southeast Asia. Thank you yourself for connecting with us, Ms. Huda.
Hi, thank you for having me. Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum. From your vantage point in Kuala Lumpur, what is the atmosphere like on the ground as Malaysia prepares to host these historic summits, particularly the inaugural Asian GCC China gathering?
Well, the city is buzzing with talks of trade, global issues, and international cooperation. I was listening to your earlier interview, and you were also talking about trade. So that's all that we're talking about these days. But I would say a lot of this buzz and excitement is mostly among delegations, the organizing committee, the diplomats, the media. But for the rest of the city, the ordinary life goes on, and it's business as usual for them. A lot of the major highways and roads in the city are actually closed today and tomorrow for the summit. The authorities have already informed about these road closures ahead of time, so everyone made preparations. A lot of schools in the city are also closed, students doing online classes. Companies have also allowed their employees to work from home. So for those who still need to go to the city, there's also public transportation. Everyone, I think, initially expected the traffic to be quite bad, for everything to be quite messy, but the road closures were actually quite efficient. They were quite organized and quick. So the authorities have been efficient with the logistics, the early preparation, despite the number of high security delegations coming in, including the Crown Prince of Kuwait. So everything's been quite organized.
Mm-hmm. And now, as the host nation, as Malaysia, what specific priorities is Malaysia bringing to the table for both the ASEAN GCC and ASEAN GCC China summits? Like, there are any particular outcomes Kuala Lumpur hopes to achieve?
Well, we'll look at these separately. So first, there's the ASEAN GCC summit. The priority would, of course, to be focused on the ASEAN GCC framework of cooperation 2024-2028. So this has already been developed. And this framework covers priority areas like free trade, education, sustainability, cultural digital connectivity, and both blocs, the GCC and ASEAN, are both very key economic blocs. They have trade volume totaling 130.7 billion US dollars, with GCC investments in ASEAN reaching $390.2 million. So economic priorities are, of course, the focus here. And yesterday at the ASEAN GCC ministerial meeting as well, the Kuwaiti foreign minister, he said that the convening of the second GCC ASEAN summit has to reflect this shared political will to consolidate a comprehensive strategic partnership that's grounded in mutual respect and common interest. And on this point about this political will, I think Malaysia definitely has the political will. There's been a lot of momentum built on working with other middle powers like the GCC, other blocs, moving away from just the West or just the major economic key players. But Malaysia, as the chair of ASEAN, has a big role to play in uniting all the other member states in trying to strengthen this political will. That's with ASEAN and the GCC. As for the ASEAN GCC China summit, I think Malaysia hopes to outline new strategies in trade, sustainable infrastructure development, digitalization across the region as well. There's a lot of anticipation as this is the inaugural summit for the ASEAN GCC China. with China as ASEAN's largest trading partner, ASEAN now becoming the world's fifth largest economy collectively. The Prime Minister of Malaysia, the office says that this summit will hopefully open a new chapter in trilateral economic collaboration. So there's a lot of anticipation. But apart from economic and trade priorities, I think Malaysia also hopes to touch on some regional and global issues as well. There's the South China Sea dispute, the humanitarian crises in Gaza and Myanmar, unilateral trade tariffs. Of course, you were just talking about the US tariffs, the trade wars by major powers, challenges of the digital economy and global supply chain resilience. So these are some of the issues. I think especially with the trade war, both of these summits, I think, are a strong signal for market diversification for ASEAN countries. There's been a lot of push to look for economic opportunities in other regions, in other blocs. So for Malaysia specifically, the top priority is definitely to foster collaborations and agreements, especially in trade and investment, at a time when the global economy, supply chains are so uncertain.
And away from let's stay a little bit away from the details and look at it from a general point of view, like from an ASEAN's perspective. How significant are these twin summits? Like, what are ASEAN's key collective expectations from engaging both the GCC and China at this high level?
Yeah, for sure. Engaging with the GCC and China is a very significant move for ASEAN. It also plays very well into this concept of ASEAN centrality. And this concept basically, it suggests that ASEAN wants to position itself as a key driver in shaping the region, navigating power, competition, fostering regional stability. It's basically saying that ASEAN can manage the region and can take charge of these issues. But I think everyone in ASEAN is also excited about the prospect of developing new partnerships and collaborations with other middle powers, other blocs. So the key collective expectations here, I think, will, like I said, mostly focus on economic discussions, but maybe touching on new areas of growth. As we know, ASEAN is trying to move towards sustainable development, green energy. The theme of ASEAN this year is also sustainability and inclusivity. So I think there's this, I guess, shared aspiration with some GCC countries as well. There's like this growing interest in non-oil business sectors. So perhaps there's more room for collaboration there, moving towards sustainability and green energy and whatnot. But for some ASEAN member states, they might expect to touch on some global issues. Like I said, for Malaysia and other countries like Indonesia as well, the Palestinian issue is very important. So at the senior ministerial meeting with ASEAN GCC yesterday, the GCC countries reiterated their firm support for the Palestinian people's struggle, their right to establish an independent sovereign state. So I think these would be some of the expectations coming from ASEAN, again, focusing very much on economic trade collaborations, but if there's room for other discussions, they would definitely want to touch on some global issues as well. With the tariff war, I think that's a concern.
Yeah, I see. So it's a mixture between political and economic factors that brought this high-level meeting and brought it about in Malaysia as the host nation. Now, beyond the official agenda, what specific areas of cooperation are Malaysia and ASEAN particularly keen to advance with the GCC, and given especially Kuwait's current presidency of the GCC? And are there any existing initiatives where Kuwait's leadership could provide a new impetus?
I think the official agenda, specifically the ASEAN GCC Framework of Cooperation 2024-2028, has provided enough material, enough discuss and negotiate on cooperation. As I said, this framework already covers a lot of priority areas like free trade, education, sustainability, cultural digital connectivity, and so on. And just today, there was already a document exchange ceremony for the free trade agreement, the FTA between Malaysia and GCC. So again, the interest is still focused on economic and trade opportunities, but there also might be more interest on sustainability again, with the GCC tapping into non-oil business sectors. I think ASEAN sees a lot of untapped opportunity there with sustainable growth and development, green energy. And just today, our Prime Minister, Datuk Sri Anwar Ibrahim, he had about a 20-minute meeting with the Crown Prince of Kuwait on the sidelines of the summit. It took about 20 minutes, but they managed to find time to discuss strengthening efforts, strengthening bilateral relations between the two countries, especially looking in areas of trade and investment, defense. We know Malaysia and Kuwait has already had some agreements on defense, some trade going on. Education, tourism, and disaster management. I think there's a lot of increased people-to-people movement between Malaysia and Kuwait as well. So the interest is there. But at the same time, during the meeting, they also discussed about current developments in the region, situations in Palestine, Syria, Lebanon, and Yemen. So, yeah, no, I think beyond the agenda, there's a lot that can be done. So I think perhaps both of these blocks, ASEAN and GCC, might need to have or might see more interest or might see more opportunities in having more frequent summits or meetings because this is an annual meeting. Everyone's trying to get their say. Everyone's trying to get their time with each other. And there's China and there's so I think there might be more interest between ASEAN member states and the GCC countries to have more engagement and more dialogue, perhaps more bilateral talks as well between the two areas. So, it's a good sign, I think, towards more international cooperation, especially cooperation in regions that have not seen a lot of engagement and dialogue before. I think previously it was very much, West and South, but I think to look at South-South collaboration is definitely positive.
Well, thank you very much for these elaborative and comprehensive inputs that you've given us over about the summits. Well, thank you and shukran jazilan. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Nailah Huda, news anchor and journalist at Astro Awani, focusing on international news, global affairs, politics and Southeast Asia.